Hey guys, we're here today with Terry Williams, and Terry is my father-in-law, and he lives in Iowa. And today we're going to talk a little bit about his success as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, and he's going to share with us what his journey has been like and how he got to feeling like, I feel good about where I am, where my business is, and I feel like this is success. So, hey, Terry, thanks for being on the show. I'm really happy to have you here.
It's good to be here.
Thanks. Can you just introduce yourself to the audience and give everybody an idea of what it is you do for business?
My name is Terry Williams. I'm a machinist. I would classify myself as a machinist. Being a machinist, I do a lot of different things. But that was my main business. And it's taken me in several different directions over the years. But mainly it started off as being a machinist or a tool and die shop. And then it's grown into many different paths, I would say, or avenues of. It's the same. The business kind of had splintered off, I guess the best way to say.
Okay. Can you kind of tell everybody what that kind of means for people that don't know what a machinist is or what they do? What kind of stuff do you make?
Well, like we would make specialized tools, for example, to make things like we have a big punch press line where we stamp out thousands and thousands of parts, and they would be used to assemble various components. I make knives for a while. I still do that from time to time. And sometimes you may only run that part once a year, and you make 50,000 parts, and then they wait till next year to do it. But the knives is one example. But that was almost complete coming off. But other things are like a bracket, for example, that's used. We would make that, and then it would be assembled with other components to be put onto like a car, for example. Or power washer. I made power washer parts. I had to think about it a little bit, like what have I made here that anybody would understand?
Yeah. Well, when we were there visiting, you showed us a boot mold.
Yes, and I got into molds, and we're making molds for boots, or modifying those and fixing them. Molds for a magazine loader that loads ammunition. I made one of those for the government. Just a machine shop does so many different things. It's hard to say what do they do.
Right.
Because everything that you use has had tooling made for a machine shop, like your TV, for example. Somebody had to make the molds for the feet that stand up the TV. Somebody had to make all the components for the chair you're sitting in. And usually they make one or two or 10 of them, and then they would prototype those and then go into production and build specialized tooling so it's cheaper to manufacture them.
So you basically work with other large businesses who are in production. So like the boot, for example, these are people that are producing boots. And what you do is you make this metal mold that they then take to their own shop and use in order to produce the boot.
Correct.
Okay.
Make the tool that would make the boot, for example, or the mold. They call it a tool or a mold.
How on earth did you get into this? Like, this isn't something that they really teach in school. It's not really a direction that kids kind of have as an option. What was the interest, or what got you on the path?
Well, it was a really strange path. I wanted to be an auto mechanic at first. So I did that, and we started a little business, I would say, and we started working on cars, and we'd buy wrecked cars and put them back together and sell them for basically what we had in them, or a little bit of profit. And we took that profit and kept buying more and more tools, because my brother and I were young and single, and all we did was work. We worked one job, and then we came home and worked in our garage. We had a garage, 24 by 30 garage. So we worked in this garage doing these odd jobs and working on cars. And we started, and after that, we had a couple of machines. We bought a couple of machine tools, manual machine tools, like a drill press, more or less. And we took that, and my brother he went to school to be a machinist, and I went to school to be an auto mechanic. And he told me, hey, we could just start doing tooling for some people. And we started doing some tooling jobs for people, and that business kind of grew, and it was kind of a hobby. And it kind of went out of control, and now here I am talking to you. I mean, it just, you blink and it's over. I mean, you start getting into it. And the car thing was something it was an okay business, but it seemed like we had a lot better success rate with the tooling side of it, machine shop, than we did with the cars.
So, and John was just telling me the other day that that's how you found the Roadrunner, right? When you guys were working on cars, isn't that when you found the car that you still have now? Or was it the Corvette, but in like a field somewhere or something?
We found the Roadrunner in a field. That was when I was still in high school. That's when we first started doing cars. That was our first car we restored. And a guy had it for sale, and he wanted $800 for it. And my dad saw it in the paper and said, "This would be a real car." And we went down and looked at it, and it was in a cornfield.
And what kind of car is it? Tell everybody how cool it is.
68 Roadrunner.
Okay.
383 4-speed, just a ground pounder, just awesome car. And it had 50,000 miles on it when we bought it. It's got about 62 on it or so now, but we went through and restored it, put it back together, and then I still have that car, yes, to this day.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, you went the machining route, but you still have this awesome car from when you were into doing cars.
Well, that's the first car we did, was the Roadrunner. And
wow.
That was fun. You know, it was something, and that was in high school, so I guess we started in high school, but we were working, you know, my brother and I both had jobs after school. So we worked as student custodians. So I guess you could say I was a janitor, then a car guy, and then a machinist.
Okay. Yeah, and let's give everybody an idea. Wapello is the city in Iowa that you live in, and this is a very small town. How many people are in Wapello?
About 2,500 people.
About 2,500 people. So very small. And the other thing that I thought was really interesting is that scouting was so big for you. And I kind of was thinking that this also a lot to do with it being such a small town, that organized things like that probably were not as big as, say, I don't know, like even the city that we live in. We consider Sequim to be a small town, but, you know, bigger cities have more organizations and things for kids to get involved in. But for you, it was scouts.
Right. Well, I think, you know, there wasn't a lot of, that was 40 years ago, so there wasn't a lot of competition compared to today of the organizations that were available for young people to be in. You had Little League and Scouts when you were 10 years old, you know, and maybe and 4-H, of course. But we got involved in scouting young and went out through that whole course from 11 to 18. And that was a great thing for us to do. That was before the cars. We were in Scouts, and we continued being in Scouts even after we were after 18.
And this is something that you feel like really contributed to your success in your business. Can you tell everybody why?
There's a certain set of things you learn called the 12 points of the Scout Law. Trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent.
And you still have it memorized to this day.
To this day. And, you know, we define those, and you'd have to define those and go through, and we'd go over the definitions, and we talk about the definitions. So, you know, you had a pretty good base of, I guess, 12 points to guide your life by, they call it. And I didn't realize it at the time when I was 16, when I became an Eagle Scout, but looking back, you know, there was, you know, that was a good path for the future, I thought. If you follow those 12 points, you'll probably end up okay.
So you really internalized it. You kind of took this as, this is how I'm going to live my life.
Yeah, that was part of becoming an Eagle Scout. You talk about those things, you define it. And, you know, there's a pretty small percentage that make it to Eagle Scout. And they call it an elite group. And I maybe didn't realize as much about it until I became a Scoutmaster and had some young men that were in my troop that I led. They made Eagle Scout. And then you really look back and go like, okay, there's a lot of things I learned being a Scoutmaster, or maybe realized I'd already knew them, but you realize it a little bit more like, oh, that's why we did that, or that really paid off. But looking back, that was a great thing to do, where, you know, you may have taken it for granted when I was 16 because I didn't realize what I was doing.
Well, sure. That makes sense. It kind of came full circle for you once you were in that different role.
Right. Exactly. And we did a high adventure base, went to Philmont, which was, in New Mexico, 78 miles in 10 days. And that was a big adventure. Everybody thinks they're tough till you run out of water,
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned being a scout master, and usually that's something that a parent would do, right? Usually a parent steps into that role to guide a troop because they want to do it for their own kid, but that wasn't the case for you.
No, they came to me. My troop was going to camp and they needed another leader because you had to have 2 leaders. So I'd been active, but not real active for a couple of years. I must have been 20. And they said, "You want to go to camp?" Sure, I'll go. So we went to camp, and we had two young men in our troop then. And I started getting more and more active and going to meetings. And then we grew the troop grew, and there could be as many as 15 at times. But we're in a small town, though, of course. So it goes in waves. But I just had a lot of fun doing it. Like, I was an assistant scoutmaster for a number of years, and finally I had the chance to be scoutmaster, or nobody wanted to do it, or for whatever reason I was it. Whether good or bad, but we had a lot of fun. We did a lot of things.
Do you feel like that's kind of like your fatherly role? Because you have no biological children of your own. John, my husband, he's your stepson.
Correct.
Did you always kind of feel like that was your contribution as a father, what you did with the Scouts?
I never really thought of fatherhood when I was at the Scouts. I guess it was all just fun, or doing what I did when I was young. Somebody did it for me. So I did it for them. And we had a little, we were more adventurous, I think, in our group than some, because, I was single. Most of the time I was in Scouts. So we'd go camping. It was like on a whim, let's go.
Yeah.
Made the mistake of planning to camp out on Mother's Day weekend once. Never did that again. Because I didn't even think about it. Let's go. We're going.
Well, sure. Why would you?
Be the best gift to a mother myself, but
well, you do have a good point there. Some moms listening are like, "Yeah, I'm okay with that. Take the kids for the weekend."
Somebody quickly reminded me it was Mother's Day, so we didn't go through with that. But we did a lot of things. We'd have a camp out at camp. We'd go to camp, and then on Friday night we'd pack out and go camping somewhere else. In the same place, but it was a lot of fun, and a lot of people, they're tired, they're getting ready to go home by then. We just pack up and go to another place and camp out. And I'd buy a half a dozen pizzas for the guys, and they'd sit around the campfire and tell stories. When you're 11 or 14, you've got a lot of stories to tell. And a lot of pizza to eat. So
yeah. Now, you mentioned some statistics about how many boys go from Boy Scouts into Eagle Scouts, and then how many did that were a part of your troop when you were a master. Can you share that with everybody?
Yeah, we had, normally I think the percentage now is 4% of the boys in scouting become Eagle Scout. It ranges from 2 to 4% of anybody who joins scouting becomes an Eagle Scout. So it's a pretty rare thing. It's hard to achieve. And in my troop, I had I think I had 17 when I was scouting.
Which is amazing, especially in a small town like that.
Yeah, I had a real strong group of guys, and they were really good friends. And this one group, I think it might have been over 8 of that group made it to Eagle.
Wow. Have you stayed in contact with any of them? Do they talk to you still? Or
I see him occasionally. I saw one young man when I was having dinner one night. He came up and started talking. And it was just like, "Hey, Terry, how you been? What's going on?" And we talked. Yeah. It's like nothing ever changed. He was talking about, he joined the Air Force. And he told me, he said, "Yeah, the Air Force." I said, "How's the Air Force?" It's great. It's great. He says, "You know what? I went through Scouts and all this stuff, so it wasn't much different. Everybody else was having," he thought that it was easier for him because of his scouting experience to go through the basic training and that kind of stuff. So that was his opinion, but it was a good conversation to have.
So that's someone else that really feels like scouting affected them later in their adult life in a positive way.
Yeah, I hear those stories quite a bit from the guys that were in my troop, and they all turned out to be successful young men. It's scouting. I think if you're talking about 2% or 4% of the people who join scouting, usually you're going to have a pretty good group of people that become an Eagle Scout. It's not something that you would say is, well, this person's an Eagle Scout, so most of those people commit felonies. No, they don't. And it might just be the people there around, because you have to have a lot of parental support, usually to make Eagle Scout. You have to have a lot of support from your family. Usually moms are pushing, or dads are pushing fairly hard.
Well, and I don't know how scouting compares now to what it was like when you were doing it. We had Austin in scouts for a little while, but it was more, maybe because he's young and it was just Cub Scouts. It was more like crafts. It wasn't as much outdoorsy, the camp out kind of stuff. That wasn't happening as much. And it also could vary based on where you are, the kind of people, the interest. And so I just want to make sure nobody knows that like scouting is not promoting this or anything. Like this is just your own life experience, and you had a good experience in scouts.
Well, and Cub Scouts, I think, is more into the crafts, because they're not, when you're 7, you're not going to go on an overnight camp out very easily. Where Boy Scouts, I always thought, was more geared towards they're from 10 and a half to 18. And I always thought, that's when, if you're going to, it's the best time to make a mistake is when you're that age. And if your parents aren't around, you'll end up making a mistake and learn from it, I think. Sometimes people, I guess, in my opinion, try to relive their life through their kids. And, scouting, I think you get a lot out of scouting if you're there by yourself, or you have to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's independence that comes with that.
Yeah, because you could do every merit badge and become an Eagle Scout. I know you could, Katie. But that wouldn't teach Austin anything. For example, I'm not saying, but you got to make sure they do the work.
Yeah.
And sometimes there are people that will look back and say, okay, well, so-and-so, he's an Eagle Scout, but his dad did his project. But you have to do a service project to become an Eagle Scout. And it says it's supposed to be 6 hours in length, but usually ends up between 40 and 80 hours of community service. And you have to plan it and execute it and get the guys to do, get it approved. It has to be approved by other people other than your scoutmaster. So it's a big deal.
Yeah.
And it's a lot. When you look back at it, it is a lot for someone to do at that age, really.
That really is kind of like a coming of age kind of thing, where you have this responsibility to do this task and you're organizing it and you're driving it. That's mature.
Yeah, you have to be the one to do it. Now, there's people that help. I mean, you have parents and scoutmasters, and they would help guide you, like, hey, you need to plan this, or when are you going to do this? Sometimes just ask them the question, but they're the ones that have to make the decision.
So now, fast forward, you have your own words that you live by. In the Scouts, you kind of mentioned what the 12 points were, but now it's adapt, improvise, and overcome. Now, what does that mean to you? Well,
I think I learned that in scouting. Maybe not that precisely defined, but you have to adapt to the situation that's in front of you. I mean, if it's raining, you have to wear a raincoat. If it's cold, you have to put a coat on. Improvise. Well, sometimes you have to make things work that aren't meant to work that way, and especially in business, for example, like we just had a problem with our microphone, and we had to improvise and make it work.
Yes, we did.
And then overcome. Well, you have to overcome that obstacle. And sometimes improvise would be you have to make something work. Maybe it's not like in business, maybe it's not the most efficient thing, but you need to get the job done. So you need to do it this way.
Do you feel like that helps you stay level-headed? I feel like people just need to know, like, I've never seen you upset, ever. I can't even imagine you angry. Like, do you ever just get overwhelmed, or are you always so level-headed and just cool?
I like to think I'm always that way. Now, I think I am more so than in the past. When I was young, everybody has a little bit of an edge, where things don't go right. But, you got to look at it and go like, okay, let's think about this. We can do it. We can fix this. And that had, my brother and I were in business together, and we had to, sometimes things didn't go well. And, finally you just got to say, okay, well, let's try this again. What are we doing here? And we argue back and forth maybe a little bit, but in the end, it was just us that had to do it. So, what are you going to do? You can't walk away. We could, but you'd be out of business or you'd go broke. So I couldn't do anything else. So basically you had to be level-headed. And, getting angry doesn't make anything easier. You can go all half-cocked and run around and scream and yell, and the only person that looks bad is you. So You got to.
Well, and also you have a really good kind of view on life. You're more positively focused, and you just kind of have this position of things are going to work out. Like it's all going to be okay. And where does that come from? How do you stay in that mindset?
Well, I think I learned that in Scouts a lot, and going to Philmont was a big one for me. I think looking back, at the time I didn't know, but it was a high adventure base, 78 miles, 10 days, and you're basically out there with 10 of your friends, and that's it. Sometimes there'd be a place where you camp where there'd be other people. Other times you're just out by yourself, and you learn that. Okay, what are you going to do? You got to walk. We walked in. You got to walk out. Carried all your stuff on your back. So yeah, everything's always going to work out. I mean, it can't get any worse than this, right? What's going to happen? It's all up from here. We'd say it's all up from here when we were at the bottom of the mountain looking up, because not in this place, Philmont, is in New Mexico, and it's all in the Rocky Mountains, or the foothills to the Rocky Mountains. We thought, being from Iowa, where we'd never seen a mountain, we thought these were the biggest things we'd ever seen. But it was just a fun time, and had a lot of great memories because of that trip. My brother actually went twice, so But I think that gave me the outlook of being positive. Everything is going to work out in the end. You just sometimes have to get out of your way, or you got to think about it, find a solution, adapt, improvise, overcome. Nothing is above your reach if you just keep going for it.
Well, and my whole position with law of attraction and vibrationally and going through life in a way where you understand that everything is energy. I think that has a lot to do with your success, because when you are emitting a vibrational frequency of positivity, you receive that back. And that's a relationship that you have in your environment, in your business, with other people. And that's the kind of thing that you are fostering. So would you say, is that safe to say that has something to do with how successful you become, given that you are focused positively?
I think, there's a lot to be said about that, because if you have a bad temperament, or you are hard to get along with, that doesn't go well in business. You have to be nice in sales, especially when you're a small business, because the sales force and you look in the mirror, that's you looking back. You're the sales force, you're the custodial force, you're the accountant force, you're everything. You're the planner. So in a small business starting out, you have to be able to communicate with people, and nobody wants to talk to somebody that is just a rough old person or a cuss that, you're not going to be able to get along with them. So if you're not positive, obviously they're not going to spend money with you, and they're not going to attract anybody. As you said, your positive energy, you're probably more correct than people realize.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's also a lot of devotion that you have, time and energy. And when we were living there with you, you work at least 6 days a week, and go into the shop. So this is something that you're very devoted to. Is that because you love it so much, or does that come from a sense of responsibility and obligation?
A little bit of both, I would say. You have to really be in a business. It is a lot different. It's your business, for example, than a job. You don't go home. It's with you all the time, whether you're home or not. And now I think it's worse because of email and how easy it is to be in contact with the world. And starting out when we were young, the weekends were time to catch up, get ahead. We worked one job, and did the business on the weekends and at nights. So it took a lot of extra time you worked 40 hours, and you tried to get 40 hours in on the weekends. That didn't work out so well, or nights, So part of devotion, and you do have to sort of love it. Nobody starts a business that they hate. I'm going to be, I wouldn't be a very good lawyer, for example. I don't hate lawyers, but I don't know anything about it, and it would be very frustrating. Or things you're not interested in, you wouldn't be good at, I believe.
And do you believe that anybody can make a business out of anything they love?
I think so. Obviously, you have to have a way to sell what you love. That's the hard part. It's getting people to buy what you want to do. Like a bakery, obviously, sewing,
A
any of those
podcast.
things. Yeah, podcast. You're doing that. You're trying to do that. And it's hard. It's real hard. And you have times when you do what you love and you wonder, is this going to ever work? Am I ever gonna pull this off? Maybe I'm just wasting my time.
Is that how you felt at some point?
There are times when everybody feels that. And you've got to, well, I don't know if we're ever going to make it. Or in my case, it's like, well, I'm single, so if I lose everything, I'm not losing as much as everybody else. So, I'll bounce back, or whatever. I'll just owe everybody money for the rest of my life, because everything costs money, and the big risks equal big rewards. They say, well, those big risks are hard to sleep at night. Thanks,
Yeah.
And then you're always worried as an entrepreneur or a business person, you have to worry about your employees. You made a commitment to these guys, they're people, and if you can't come through, well, then what's that do to them? So it's not just losing yourself. When I was young, it was just losing myself. Okay, I'm only just me and my brother, and my parents had some finances involved as well. But then when I got employees, it was more like, I'm paying these guys too. I got to make enough money to cover them at least. And it seems like, in my opinion, when you had employees, maybe it was a little more difficult.
Yeah. Well, and family. And your family grew. Yeah. Now your family is quite a bit bigger. Yeah. Although you have a big family, like just your initial, your parents and your brother, and then all your aunts and your uncles and cousins. When we were living there, we went to one of the family reunions, and it was huge. There were so many people. So you do have a big family also.
Right. I have a big family. They weren't tied up to lose anything if my business didn't succeed, other than my parents, which were made a big influence on me as well, or they put a lot of time in and money. But it's just starting a business is really hard, but it can be really rewarding. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. How would you define success?
Success. That's a hard one to define, in my opinion. I don't know if I've ever been able to define it very well. It's being comfortable enough to have your business where it's not. I come in almost every day, still 6 days a week, and a lot of Sundays, but sometimes on the weekends I'm just doing things that maybe some projects I want to do, or things that there's things you have to be done too every day. But success, I'm not sure that anybody could ever say, if you're in a business, you probably never feel like you're successful, even though you are.
Is that the drive? Is that what keeps pushing you to keep going?
There's always something you could do better. You've always got something to do. It's not like, well, success, or I don't have anything to do. Well, no. I mean, it's like you being a mother. There is never laundry that is always caught up, I'm sure.
It's true. It's really true.
And I don't know that as a parent. I've never been a parent, so I don't know, but I've seen it, and I'm like, wow. So people think, well, you really work hard. No, I don't really work hard. You work hard. Everybody works hard. Just you're seeing it as I'm working, and I'm seeing it as, well, you go home and work harder than me doing what you have to do to keep your family going. So.
Yeah. A lot of people define success based on monetary gain. And you are a self-made millionaire. So you're saying that even though you are a self-made millionaire, you don't use that to define your success.
I don't think money defines success. I've seen a lot of rich people who really were poor in some ways.
I love that.
I don't think, I that's my opinion. I mean, if all you're chasing is money, then you're doing the wrong thing. You go be a banker or go do whatever, but running your own business, it's not more. It's about more than money.
What is your goal each day when you head into the shop?
Okay, that changes about 5 minutes after I get here, but I understand what you're asking.
Okay.
Well, you have goals, and like when we were in Scouts, we'd always go on campouts. We'd have a plan. I'd always talk to the guys about it. We're going to have to get a meal plan, activity plan, and we'd go through and we'd make all these plans. And we'd say, you know what the most important thing about a plan is? Plans change. So when you come to work in the morning, you have a plan. Like, I'm going to get this done. I'm going to make sure I get this piece of software updated, and I'm going to do this. And then somebody calls and say, hey, I've got these parts I need to rework right now. Okay, we better get that done right now. Or
so that's the adaptability that you're talking about. You go in thinking your day is going to go one way, and then you have to adapt.
Right. And then Friday comes, and you look back at your list you made and say, well, I didn't get anything done that I wanted to do, so I'm coming in Saturday. And you still don't get it done. But it's kind of like being a mom, I think, or being a parent. You know, you think what's going to happen one day is going to happen, but then somebody's sick. So guess what happens? You got to do something else.
So then, in that respect, what defines a good day? What allows you to go home feeling good about what you did that day?
You know, if you can cross some things off your list where something happens and I had to change my plan, but I still was able to accomplish a couple little things. That's a good day. And, everybody, our parts are coming. We are productive in the shop as far as getting numbers out. That's a good day. It's not about money. Just, okay, we want to get so much done. We're accomplishing it. We're getting close to our goal. That's a good day.
And are you able to turn it off when you get home? Are you able to be like, okay, work is done for the day. I can relax now?
To some extent. I don't know if you ever turn it off. I know I do a lot better now than I used to. My brother passed away suddenly, and that was really tough. Then I could never turn it off. It was just like constant worry and and it was a real sudden thing. And he did part of the business and I did part of the business, and we didn't cross train at all. So you should always have people able to do everything. I learned that the hard way. But when it didn't work that way, you're like, well, where's the numbers for the tax to log in and pay our taxes? Where's all these passwords? Where's this? Where's this, for example? Where's that? And I had no idea, and we had to kind of just start. And then some of the machines that we worked with, he ran some and I ran some. Well, thank goodness I ran some, but I had to learn how to run the other ones too. That was a terrible time.
So that was, at that time, you're worried about all your own production stuff, keeping your end of the business going. At the same time, now you have to incorporate in how to learn how Leo was doing everything.
Yes, exactly. It was just horrendous. Plus, keep the shop going. Because right. Bills are always coming. Everybody's got bills. Everybody's got struggles. I don't care what kind of business you have. There's always way more. Well, I've heard the saying that everybody has enough money to do what they want. They just don't have enough money to do everything they want. So you have to pick and choose what you need to do and then try to keep sales coming in. And then the other worry about that is when a key person dies in your business or in your partnership, were the people you were doing business with you or with him or the person that's gone? And that was a big worry. And my customers were very good, and they worked with me to keep it going. And part of that might have been, like you say, just keeping things positive, trying to keep things positive, even though there wasn't a lot positive those days.
Yeah.
But, what are you going to do? You can't.
Well, and you had really strong relationships with your customers. You're good at relationships. You really have a connection with the people you work with.
Right. It was something that kind of came to me. I had to do some kind of retail sales as the business grew too. And that was something that probably surprised everyone, including myself, that how easily or how well I did at that. Nobody would have assumed I'd be a salesman because I just was a worker. I'm a maintenance guy. I'm, a machinist. I'm not really a people person, I didn't think, but I did well with them, and I could joke around with people, and we could have a good time, and then I ended up selling things. So worked out.
Oh, you learned something about yourself.
I did. I learned a lot more about myself than I ever thought I would. I've been to 15 trade shows, and those were tough, but it's just, you just got to have fun at those things and just kind of joke around and hope they say if you get one good lead from a trade show per show, you've succeeded. And that is really hard for people to grasp, including myself, because they're so expensive and so hard to do. But to think you're only going to get one lead out of an event, one lead, it's really hard, I think, for people starting business to think just one lead. Yeah, just one. And it may not happen for years. That's the hard part.
Yeah. But if you can stay positive.
Yeah, you got to stay positive. Like, well, we're going to make enough money to live, but we may not ever be rich. But then I don't know anybody who is really. So.
But now things are good with the business. You have a handle on everything. You're balanced again. Is that accurate?
My balance is way better now. I was real lucky with some key people that came, really stepped up to the plate. Surprisingly so. I mean, just unbelievable, and totally a person that I hired with zero experience really took off and is amazing. Where you wouldn't assume that. I don't. Would anybody take a risk like that in business? Would you hire somebody that had no experience, no qualifications? But looking back, that was the best thing I ever did.
I think that speaks to your positive energy, because when you needed it the most, the right person was there.
You're right.
And that comes with having faith going forward. And when these big challenges happen, I mean, losing your brother was a huge, it was sad. It was devastating for personally and with the business. And yet this person came at the very time you needed them, and it made all the difference.
Yeah. And there were other issues in the background that, I didn't know if it was going to work out, and things just automatically worked out. And I said, this is not going to work out. Myself, when hearing the story, it was so frustrating, because this person lived in California and had to come out here to Iowa, pick up everything they own, and drive across the country. We're going to do it like in 5 days. Like Diana went out and help them. I'm going to go pick them up, and we're coming back on Tuesday. No, that's like too fast. I mean, there's no way. Like you guys came across the country. And how long?
It took 5 days to get there, but that was my fault, because I was like, John, I'm done. I need to sleep.
Well, yeah, but you had to pack too, and you did, and it took some time. You didn't pick up in 5 days. But and they didn't either. They packed and prepared. But I mean, I just thought, there's no way you're going to get all this accomplished. And we're on the road. Really? You're on the road? I was surprised. And then, it just worked out better than I could have ever expected.
Yeah.
And it continues to. I mean, I'm amazed at what happens. We had Tanya was there to help with my dad and with my mom. I mean, basically, I thought I hired somebody to work in my machine shop, but I hired a nurse as well as her husband, Tim.
But this is family, too. Tanya is John's sister.
Yes.
It's Diana's daughter, and it's her husband and their kids that moved out there.
Yes.
That's what family does. They show up for their family.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. Looking back, it was like, wow. Because
and I think that your gratitude about it is kind of what I'm trying to get at the whole element of who you are, because you have that going for you, that positivity and that appreciation. When you appreciate these things, then that just brings more of it to you. And that's a reality for you.
Either that I'm a really good salesman, but I don't think not good at sales. So, I had to be.
Well, if you are a good salesman, it's because it comes from a place of authenticity.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Everything that I needed worked out, even though I didn't know if it would. And once you get one success, you just kind of think, well, it's going to keep happening. We're going to keep doing it the same way, and it seems to work. So I guess your positive outlook is a real key thing about being in business. You can't let the little things get you down. And there'll be a lot of little things. I mean, things don't always go well. And you got to kind of roll with it and go, well, I lost on that one, but we'll make it up on the next one. Or, we'll make sure we don't make that mistake again. And there are always challenges just like everybody faces. When you have your own business, there's a lot more challenges on the day-to-day side.
So I know you normally work with big businesses. Do you ever work with individuals? Like if somebody listening wanted to work with you, is that something they could do? Do you have like a website where they could learn more about what kind of things you offer?
Yeah, we do work for anybody really. Most of my stuff is geared towards higher production stuff, people, because that's who would want 80,000 parts a year, for example. But we do have a coil line and a press line. Like I said, we made parts for power washer generators, a lot of gun parts for the government. We do a lot of things along those lines.
Well, if anybody's curious and they want to know more about what you do you have a website or some way where they could check it out?
Yes, Superior Tooling is my business. And Superior Arms and Arm Attack are three of my business. I have three businesses. So, you can get a hold of me at leo2@superiorarms.com. That's a good one.
Okay.
And and we've done things for individuals. I do things for corporations. So you never know.
Well, it's really been a pleasure having this conversation with you. And I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing who you are with everybody and what you do. And if you guys want to check out Terry, go ahead and check him out. And, you too can have success, however you define it, in business, and could also be a self-made millionaire, just like Terry. Hey, thanks for being here today.
Well, thank you for having me, Katie. And we'll be talking about your millions here real soon.
I hope you're right.
I know I am.
If you like being able to watch the podcast, make sure to let me know by subscribing to this channel.